What time is it? Hey folks, it's time for Dow's Weekly Digest. Let me give you a couple of numbers to keep back in your mind there a little bit. 525,600. Stay tuned, and I'm going to have the answer for you. Here's another number. 112,000. 112,000. Both of them pretty good sized numbers. So what time is it? It's baseball season time. I'm hoping that the majors will start for us, but just even across the street, the neighbor boys, they're playing catch, and you get the snap of that ball into the glove there, and baseball is a time that, man, I just love. I love the sport of baseball. It's been a part of my life. It's been my high times and low times in my life. Low times, one of the very, very first teams that I played organized ball with, I tried out, was going to play with that team, and I didn't make the team. And the reason I didn't make the team, folks, was, maybe you hate to say it, the color of my skin. Because of that, I didn't make that all-white team. That very same year, Forey Aldrich had a team, and he had me play for his team. That year, we won the championship. And that year, I became MVP of that league. So, low point and maybe a high point. Other high points. As you know, I'm from Panama, so I had my baseball heroes. Rod Carew. If you go to the Target Field baseball game with the Minnesota Twins, there's a statue out in front there, and it is Rod Carew. Was an infielder, set some hitting records, just a super player. And Rod was from Panama. He was born in Panama City, much like I am. Rod was born in the Canal Zone, it was called. Another player from Panama, Mr. Rivera, Marino Rivera, pitcher for the New York Yankees. Both these players, Hall of Fame baseball players. Marino was born also in Panama City. His father didn't work on the canal. Marino's father was a captain of a fishing ship. And during low tide, Marino and other boys would actually play on the beach. And in high tide, their game was over because it'd be covered by the ocean. And one of the times that we went there, I was able to take a picture of low tide, and the boys were still playing baseball out there. And there's quite the hazards out there of rocks and you name it. They're playing on the ocean beach there. Marino, his father being that fish boat captain, they didn't have a lot of money. And so he actually used and fashioned cardboard to make his gloves with. That was his glove for that. And then later he became what? As I said, Hall of Fame relief pitcher for the New York Yankees. So those are some heroes. Lou Gehrig was a left-handed player. So my first glove was a Lou Gehrig baseball glove. Remember, on baseball gloves, a lot of times on the little finger, they would have then the signature of the baseball player that glove was on. In high school, gosh, we'd have World Series. World Series would be during day games. There would be no night games in World Series. And in our little high school, we had what they called then study hall, a big hall where if you didn't have a class, you could go there to so-called study. And during World Series, they would roll in a TV, small little TV, black and white, and boy, we get to watch the World Series there. Another highlight indeed was with my father. Of course, my team was the Kansas City Royals. Kansas City has always been my team. My dad's team was Cincinnati Reds. And I didn't really know why. And then finally one day kind of drops the bomb and everything. I said, why do you like the Kansas City Reds? Johnny Bench? No. Pete Rose? No. Why? Because of the coach. I said, oh, that white-haired Sparky Anderson? Yeah. I said, why? I went to school with him. I said, what? Yeah, my dad went to school with Sparky Anderson. He was 2 grades right behind him in a little bitty town here in South Dakota called Bridgewater, South Dakota. When I was in my early 20s living in Des Moines, the Cincinnati Reds had tryouts. Now, tryouts, the claim to fame is I tried out for the Cincinnati Reds. But anybody could try out for the Cincinnati Reds. The rest of the story, Paul Harvey-wise. But I made it through the second round. But you had to be able to run from home plate to first base in such a time. If you didn't do it, you didn't make the first cut. And then you'd go from the first cut there on and so forth. But they were very, very particular. But he was alive yet when he knew that I had tried out for the Cincinnati Reds. Well, I don't have for us today cowboy wisdom. I have Yogi Bear wisdom. Yogi Berra. I said Yogi Bear cartoon. And his name was Lawrence Peter Berra. He was actually a soldier in World War II. He was in D-Day. When D-Day, you speak of going to France, Yogi Berra was there. Yogi Berra was a catcher for the New York Yankees. And Casey Stengel was a coach many times for Yogi. As quoted to Yogi, when you get to the fork in the road, take it. And they asked Yogi once how come they didn't win the game. And he said, we made too many wrong mistakes. Finally, they asked him, quoted to Yogi is, go ahead and cut that pizza in 4. I'm not that hungry, so don't cut it in 8s. So those are kind of wisdom to share from this baseball theme of Yogi Berra. I gave you a couple of numbers just to kind of let you folks know I'm kind of obsessed with time. Now, it's funny, I love baseball because, there is no time limit on baseball. Maybe now sometimes the way they play the games with the kids and sometimes even softball rules and that. But typically, there is no time limit on a baseball game. But as I said, I may be obsessed with time. Right here in my office, I've got 7 timepieces. And I can't tell you probably that they all have the same time on them. But I give you a number, 112,000. 112,000. 45-hour work week. And I've always heard from an early mentor, he said the difference between a job and a career is 10 hours a week. So again, using the conservative of 45 hours, a 40-hour week, 112,000 hours. Folks, that's how long I have been involved in this wonderful industry. And I've seen some, again, high times and some low times too in this industry. But in the time that we spend together, then, we hope that we are able to maybe lead you. L-E-A-D. And what I mean by that is that L for learn, that you're going to learn something. Maybe something about Dow personally, but also particularly that it may help you in your endeavor in this industry. E, enhance. I use the word help. We hope that it enhances, again, your market. Or maybe expand on looking at other markets, other people that you have a risk to cover there. A, adapt. Folks, it's the time we all have to adapt in the different elements that we have. I'm talking to you right now. We adapt it rather than doing it person to person there. And deliver. That you're able to deliver to take care of your client's needs. Lead. L-E-A-D. Learn, enhance, adapt, and finally deliver. Lead. In bringing these resources to you, we're always trying to recognize that you're here to help your clients. We know you are. Let's say that you have a bank account. In that bank account, there's a deposit made. And that deposit is $86,400. And it's there for you to use. And 24 hours later, that account is emptied. But the next day, guess what? There's a deposit for how much? $86,400. 86,400 seconds in a day, folks. So let's start the spring training. As I said, we are here for your life. We think that life insurance is one of the foundational things that all families should be having. Are your clients, are you preparing them for what's ahead? Now, none of us have a crystal ball, but we do know what, as life's journey goes down that path, there are changes all the time. So are they ready for what's ahead? Do they have protection now, but do they have the potential for benefits for tomorrow? And maybe that tomorrow includes retirement. And that may come in the form of folks of permanent life insurance. So they're actually to build those resources. That resources in that permanent plan would be called cash value. Would be cash value. And they can address financial needs. And our industry has reacted such that we even have riders that can help with a life event, maybe of living too long, and the event comes of needing long-term care, that we have built over the evolution, be able to help with that particular risk there. So I was speaking of what we have a product, basics called life insurance, to be able to customize to help today and for tomorrow. Now, one in particular I would call a fixed indexed universal life. Fixed, or sometimes some carriers might call it flexible, meaning that premium could change, and the client could maybe change the premium if they so wished for whatever a reason that may be covered by you. Okay. Index, in that the living value there that I'm talked about, the potential of growth there, is done in the form of looking at an indexed. An index could be S&P 500, it could be the NASDAQ. Now, they're not buying shares directly of that, but that's used as kind of a measuring stick, if you will, and I'll get a little more into it, of after an anniversary, a year, whether or not the policy has grown or not. But the advantage of the indexed universal life is that if the index measuring stick that we're looking at, due to market conditions, whatever it might be, happen to be down from what was the previous anniversary, they do not experience that loss. They will continue down the path. They will continue down the path. So in the volatility of down market, down index, they're going to substantiate themselves, keep on the path, going towards first base, knowing that they didn't have a loss there. So that's the advantage of the indexed itself. And the measurement of that can be done by different ways. And of course, maybe as an industry, we like to say that we're different, so each company may have some type of variations. And you might hear terms like caps, participation rates, fees, and other things that become involved. But that's kind of some of the basics that we have there. Now, this being permanent insurance, then we have some tax advantages there, don't we? You know, it was back in 1913 that the industry market went to Roosevelt, and he then substantiated that death benefit would continue to be received to the beneficiary under normal circumstances. How? Income tax-free, folks. Income tax-free. That is still there. That is still there. I talked about the potential growth each year of this index, watching that measuring stick. That growth is not like a CD over here, where then I have to pay tax on that and report that. No, that what growth is within that product we call life insurance, and it retains that growth income tax free. The beauty is that is an asset of mine, and I can even use it how I believe it to use it for as life events change. I heard an example this morning of a person that used the advantage of their permanent life insurance. They used that asset, they used that portion called cash value. They asked for a loan on the policy to help them build a new house. Now, did they have to go to a banker for that? No. They just had to contact you, their agent, and within 5 days, check is in the mail. Or they could have contacted the company themselves. It came directly to them. Look at the privacy of that. In fact, a year later, client contacts the agent, says, we got a lot of our 1099s, and we didn't get a 1099 on that money that we borrowed from our life insurance policy. Hey, good news, folks. What? That is an event that they don't have to pay taxes on. As long as the policy remains in force, they don't have to pay tax on that. What a big advantage of that. Now, they had all intentions that once they built their new house and sold their existing house, they were going to put the money back in, this was a private loan, from the cash value with their own asset, the life insurance policy, and in effect, what? Pay themselves back. Now, what if death would occur prior to that? That loan would have been subtracted from the death benefit. But boy, some big advantages there on that permanent policy. Well, folks, we have within our portfolio a fixed indexed universal life with a company, Allianz. And Allianz, under our name tag, let's call them, are a premier carrier. And you might ask, okay, why? There's a lot of other fixed index universal lives out there. In fact, you yourself, financial markets, have other ones. Sure we do. Why do you consider Allianz one of your premiers? And really, worth the time for you even to tell me about today? I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you about Allianz's fixed index universal life. Allianz's Pro Plus Advantage. Now, their target market, and consider this maybe being yours, is first the Henrys. I hadn't heard of that term Henrys before, frankly, folks. Henry. Okay. High income, not rich yet. High income, not rich yet. And using maybe the Allianz fixed index universal life as a way to look down the horizon and help supplement their retirement. Because maybe they're already looking in their plans to max out their 401k. The Henrys. Do you have any Henrys? The affluent. The affluent that maybe they're looking to supplement their income. And well, maybe they're 60 years old, affluent. Contact my internal wholesaler. They would like to talk to you about that 60-year-old and how we can help them supplement their income. Transition baby boomers. They use that term of being maybe 5 to 10 years that they're looking again on the horizon of retirement. And again, maybe they're looking at ways to supplement their income. And then the category of small business. small business deferred compensation plans, key employee plans. Now, is that exclusively to Allianz? No, not at all. We talk to other to agents all over in regards to maybe this different categories. Although maybe Friday I'll ask my internal wholesalers about Henrys. How many Henrys do they deal with there? Okay, so we looked at, speaking of life insurance, and I'm speaking of what? Death protection, and it can be maybe income replacement, financial expenses, mortgages, supplement to college, all basic needs, right? Living advantage, I spoke about some of the tax advantages there. So basically that client then pays the premium to the insurance company. Insurance company maybe takes the advantage of the law of large numbers. All of us looking at spreading our risk, taking advantage of the law of large numbers. So what does Allianz then do with the premium? Okay, so work with me here. Let's say that the premium is $1,000 and the product is this fixed indexed universal life. Fixed index universal life. So of the $1,000, $950 of it in my example is going to be into the general portfolio, into some very conservative investments. And the $50, which represents what? 5%, that's going to go into something, let me call it a hedging instrument. And from that hedging instrument, it'll work its way with the company, and that's how they're going to figure the indexed interest credits. Okay? So you can see what 95% of our premiums is going to what? The investment portfolios. Very conservative. So that's high quality fixed income type of instruments, and that 5% is going into this thing called the hedging instrument. And they pay the index interest credits from that hedging amount there. Now that portfolio that I spoke of, they would come with such things as maybe corporate bonds. Use an example of Allianz, almost 75% are corporate bonds. Mortgage loans, around 10%. Government bonds and some cash and short-term notes there. That's what $950 was going there. Okay. How about that hedging budget there that I spoke of? That is going to then be used to afford in the calculation of that index credit that you're going to receive on your policy. And again, remember, they're not buying shares of that particular index or anything. The index is what the measuring stick. They're going to help, the hedging fund's going to help manage market movements. And it's going to help them keep their promise. It's going to help them keep their promise. Now, when I give them that $1,000, they'll ask me, do you want it into the fixed account, fixed interest rate? It could change from year to year. Or do you want to choose what measuring stick you want to look at? That would be the index crediting method. And we could look at the measuring stick monthly, year to year. It'd be some different changes there. Well, Ed, so far, you haven't described anything that's necessarily different than any other fixed index universal life. You're correct. We're still in spring training. But why do we think that Allianz is one of our premier carriers? And the uniqueness that the Allianz Pro Plus Advantage has. Well, here are the position points I want to bring up that'll help us touch all the bases, folks. Touch all the bases. They have an exclusive index lock capability. An exclusive index lock capability. So the client has a much more level of control. So not only can the client go online and check it every day if they want to, and check what the index is doing, but they, at any time, so if the anniversary was, let's say, May the 1st, then all those 12 months before 12 months goes by, that client could decide that at that point they want to lock in the index. The index grew this much, and they see all this volatility, and they want to lock it in now. And they can do that. And when they do that, that locks it in for the remaining months until it comes to its anniversary. Index lock. Do other companies have the index lock? Folks, not that I'm aware of. Now, Allianz has been in the index market for many, many, many years, and they're one of the leaders. And many times they will be the innovators, and then others will follow. So that's why I say, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know of the index law. Do you think in the last couple months that some of the policyholders were contacted by their agent and they recovered again that benefit that's in their policy called the index lock? And some of them took advantage of that. Index lock. So we made it to first base. They can choose, the policyholder, your client, can choose between select index allocations, such as a standard, maybe choice that they're doing. So they'll have 3 allocation options there. A bonus of 15% bonus option. And that has 7 allocation options. And then finally, select, where then they have 4 allocation options, but the bonus opportunity is 40%. Now, there is an annual reset charge of that of 1%, but the 15%, there is no charge with that. What do we see built right within there? Opportunity. You can customize to the risk tolerance that your client has there. I think that takes me to second base. Okay, I rounded second and I'm on way to third. Policy loans. Not only is it competitive, but it's also flexible with Allianz. Allianz has a fixed loan rate, like a lot of companies have. Okay? So say the loan rate is 2.91, fixed rate. The money that you borrowed, it's going to then grow at a rate of 2%. So the money I use to collateralize the loan, so to speak, that moves out of my index to help collateralize that loan, and it's going to get 2%. The loan interest rate is what? 2.91%. So it's costing me almost, 1% for that loan, because the 2% I earn is offsetting the 2.91% difference, about net of 1% there. That's the fixed rate. Okay. How about the index loan rate? Index loan rate is then always at 5%. But if the index that I chose that year was gaining at 8%, then you could see I have 8% of interest credit here that I've got. So it didn't remove itself from the interest credit possibility there. And my 8% was what I gained, but my cost for that loan was 5%. So I actually gained 3%. Now this is interest crediting, and it changes from policy anniversary to policy anniversary. So it could be maybe at 3%. If it was 3%, but the loan interest is 5%, then my net cost would be 2%. So I could have the choice of a fixed rate or a index loan rate. And you know what, folks? I could change that every anniversary that I wanted to. I could be watching and actually start with the index. 1 year later, say, I want to switch it to the fixed. 1 year later, say, I want to go back to the index. Or I could say, can you split it 50-50? Can you put 10,000 here on my index loan rate and 10,000 here under the fixed? They can do that. Again, I mentioned flexibility, folks. I don't know of any other carrier that gives them the flexibility of switching or having the combination thereof. Again, I don't know of any carriers that allows that much flexibility. So I think that brings me to maybe third base there. Well, what's going to take me home? I spoke of that premium. Remember that $1,000? I broke it up into $950 going into the portfolio, right? $50 going into the hedging option. Typically, again, to the best of my knowledge, most of our insurance companies will involve where they will take that hedging need that they have and they will, let's call it, farm it out to an investment bank. And that investment bank, when they get those dollars, then they take on the liability. But they also then are not doing it for free, so they're doing it for what? A profit that the investment bank is looking for in taking care of that particular need there. The hedging investments done by Allianz is done by the dynamic team in-house. Folks, there's a whole department that their responsibility is having the responsibility and managing those hedging asset dollars of Allianz. So the result then being they are oftentimes more competitive in their caps and their spreads and their interest rates than other carriers out there. They're able to collectively, again with the law of large numbers, purchase higher grade bonds. They can build a more stable and higher quality investment portfolios. And as such, then they're able to what? Then work with actuaries and build then options in their policies, such as the lock feature that are unique to Allianz. Another number, 100 plus with a capital B, 100 plus billion they have under management. So you have in-house hedging being done by Allianz. Takes me to home run. Very unique options that Allianz has. That's why they're one of our premier carriers. Are they number one all the time? No, folks. But you need to be talking to your internal wholesaler and ask them to run a comparison with Allianz. Again, with some of the unique options that they have there. As I've said in the past, folks, we have a saying around here that at financial markets we're hunting for the best. I hope I was able to explain to you why we consider Allianz to be one of our premier carriers and why they are one of the best out there. Now with maybe a few recommendations that I have today. A book that I enjoy and even read it about every year about this time, usually before this. It's entitled 22 Success Lessons from Baseball. It's from the author Ron White. 22 Lessons from Baseball. One quick story in there is number 24. Number 24, Willie Mays. You know, Willie Mays, center fielder, happened to be a position that I love to play, center field. Super defensive player along with good home run hitter. A lot of times when Willie was out there in the outfield, or even when he was stealing bases, he was so fast that his hat would come off, folks. Well, when he was around the age of 60, the story goes, that he was interviewed, and he admitted something that no one knew. Now back then, they didn't have baseball hats that would adjust. You had to actually, have a certain 5 7/8 flannel hat. My first uniform was a flannel uniform. Hot Yankee pinstripe, I remember. And folks, I would iron that uniform. I was so proud of that uniform. I ironed that uniform. Mom would wash it, but I would iron it and get it all set up. I mean, it would be on a hanger with the belt and the socks. Remember, you had to wear 2 socks, right? The stockings and the socks themselves. And then I would shine my spikes. But Willie would say in the story that when he got to first base, he would always kick first base. So if he made it to first, before the pitcher would start pitching to the next batter, or even when they did, he would continually kick the first base. Now back then, they didn't have the plug. They had a wrap that you had to do. You would put down in the ground a spike, and then you would wrap a piece of canvas around that to hold on to that. So it moved. Willie would be kicking that towards second base. So he was just maybe a step closer to second base. The other thing that Willie did, he wore a hat that was one size too big. So when he took off, whether it be in the outfield or in the running the bases, his hat a lot of times would fly off. And I said, "My goodness, look how fast he is." He just didn't have a hat and he admitted that. So those are some kind of cute stories in there in this here. 22 Success Lessons from Baseball. That's the book that I recommend there. The poem deals with time, okay? The poem is entitled, of course it says author anonymous, but the poem is entitled Take Time. It is patterned after the Bible. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 to 8. That's what that poem is based upon. So you could kind of go to the Bible and see kind of what it is. But otherwise you could Google Take Time is the name of the poem. In fact, if you look back up here in the corner, I've got that poem right there. Take Time itself. How about the movie? Well, it's a baseball movie, so it's called Sandlot. Kids playing baseball. Watch the movie Sandlot. And song, maybe 2 songs for you. One is called Time in a Bottle by the late Jim Croce. Time in a Bottle, the late Jim Croce. Croce is his name. And the other is called Seasons of Love. Seasons of Love goes over 525,600. 525,600 minutes in a year. And it talks about maybe the way that we measure a year, those minutes, and how we, spend that time. So those two songs there. And the singer of that song, the Seasons of Love, I would recommend Glee. Glee used to be like a TV show, but they sang this song, Seasons of Love, when actually in real life, prior to that, one of the actors died. And they still held the filming of this song, and you can kind of grasp the sadness that the singers were singing when they sang that song. The video today that I highly recommend comes to us from Allianz. And it's kind of entitled The Gift of Time. And it really made me think, because then I could actually reflect a little bit on how many people do you know that are, let's say, over the age of 80, over the age of 85, over the age of 90. My mother, a little town of Horconcito in Panama, over the age of 90 she is. And the point of the video of The Gift of Time is that, with medical science the way it is, more and more of us all the time are granted 30 extra years. 30 extra years from what the public decides retirement necessarily is. And how that is really going to change the whole culture of humanity on how we are going to then go through life as a journey beyond that. I feel pretty darn good right now, folks. They say that there will be in 2050 over 3 million people in the world that are over the age of 100. And this wonderful video shows at different life stages what people are doing that are living longer. There's one saxophonist there, he's in his 90s. I love the quote that he said. He said, yeah, the newspapers got mad at me because I've more than once declared that I was going to retire. And they write about my retirement, and then I'd go right back. He says, and they just got upset with me. But he says, I love what I'm doing. And he says, you know what? I'm learning all the time. So I hope you take the time to watch this video that's called Gift of Time.
I've retired about 5 times, and the newspapers really got mad at me because they put it in the paper, and then when I got through playing, I said, well, I decided I wouldn't retire. You don't want to stop, you know.
Irv Williams is one of the oldest performing jazz musicians in the country right now.
I started playing saxophone when I was 13, 14. I never thought I'd be playing at 96. But I've enjoyed the whole shebang, I really have. I worked in dry cleaning for maybe 30 years. I was glad to finish dry cleaning and stick to music. I just wanted to do a little more practicing and make myself a little better if I could. I never ever say, oh, well, man, this is probably going to be the last time. You don't know what the last time is going to be.
He has this amazing sound. He's doing stuff that I can't do, you know, and to have something you do that's creative as a strategy for aging well is an extraordinarily valuable thing. I would not be surprised to see Irv Williams still on stage for his 98th birthday, for his 99th birthday, and even his 100th. I wouldn't be surprised.
Those of us living today have been handed a remarkable gift, a gift of extra 30 years of life. People like Irv are the pioneers of this new longevity. As we are living longer lives, they're not paying attention to those old guideposts that said it's time to retire. And we're especially beginning to see people pursue encore careers, taking on new challenges as they come to see their retirements approaching and doing something that's quite remarkable and different.
Well, at first, we were a little shy to tell our friends that we were going to raise alpacas because the general reaction was that you're crazy. But that didn't deter us.
People have to take a chance and step out because you can always step back in. About 12 years ago, I was working for West Marine in Portland as an operations manager. And that's when this guy came to the store that I was working at and mentioned they had alpacas. I said, what's an alpaca? And so that's when we stepped out, did a little research, found that we could go to a seminar and learn a little bit more about alpacas. Then we decided that, well, we could take a chance on this.
Hey, look at this.
We sold our house. We were able to take that money and buy this place. When we started, we bought 4 females.
And now we have about 50 alpacas.
Our main focus is on the yarn that they produce. We'll shear them once a year. I shear them in May, and then we bring it in here and sell it in the yarn shop. 2.5 years into the business, we had already got a return in our investment.
It's also very fun for our family to be able to be here with us, and they get the experience of being around the farm animals and taking care of them. We felt like this was really a great business for us to have and take in past our formal retirement.
I sometimes feel I'm retired already. Oh, they're having fun.
There they go, look at them running, see them running? We just are very happy with the way this has turned out for us.
Thomas and Connie are doing something that is still pretty unusual,
A little love there.
but I believe is really representing the future. They decided to take time to really rethink what they're doing and carve out a whole new career in the middle of what used to be a single career. It's really stepping back and saying, what is it about old age? What is it about middle age? What is it about youth? Because today, young people have the opportunity to approach longevity as the greatest gift of all. They don't have to live their lives the way people did in the past. If they decide that they're going to go explore the world, that's great.
Nevis and I were always talking to each other, and we'd always bring up these things like, hey, someday we'll go to this place, or someday we'll try that. And then one day we realized that day is now. I think most people in life end up waiting for retirement to travel. And Nevis and I, we were about 10 years into our respective careers, and we were making good salaries, but we realized it's never going to be a perfect time. I remember texting Nevis, and I was like, let's figure out the logistics of how it's going to be full-time travelers. We sold everything that we weren't going to be taking with us, built the camper, and then we first hit the road in August.
My parents were like, what? Where are you going? Are bears out there?
At first, it was kind of like, okay, how are we going to be able to make this sustainable? So the business that we started while we were on the road is called Camp Trend. As an entity, we get to use our skills as artists, as photographers, as makeup artists. We'll do shoots for outdoor companies and help brands kind of get their message out there.
We work hard, but we also allow ourselves to enjoy it. We're happy with having time.
Time is right, man. We're time rich.
That's what we did.
Just feels like we're trained to go through school and then immediately jump in a job and put in 35 years and then end up retiring. But I've always been a believer, and if you're really passionate enough about anything in life, if you just go do it and you work hard at it, you're gonna find a way to make it work.
Each of these stories illustrate ways that individuals can begin to take advantage of this new longevity. They're doing it in very different ways, and they're doing it in different stages. What they're illustrating so clearly is that it's possible to create new social norms and make a real change wherever you are. There may be nothing more important than coming to see that this is not a story about old age. This is a story about long life, and it is ours to write.
I hope you enjoyed that and listening to that lady from the Stanford Center on longevity and how this, 30-year is not out of the question that. And if I can add a little bit to that, folks, this, as I said, come from Allianz. And they've put together a whole packet. They have a PowerPoint. They have videos embedded at that. They have further discussions with that Stanford Center. And then they have invites that you can send them. And then they have worksheets that you can use. Because what we're speaking of, what is the longevity risk of the risk of living too long. And it approaches that, and I think it does it in a very nice but realistic way. So after you see that, please contact your internal wholesaler, and they'll be glad to get you maybe a sample that you can see it. And we should get you on a marketing list there that we can help you with that and presented it to your clients, either virtually or when the time comes personally there. So the gift of time. I know I enjoyed it very much. Because life is a journey, and let's decide on what our map's going to be on that journey. Thank you so very much for being with me today. And remember that, blessed are those who ease the pain of misfortune, for they shall be called insurance agents. Take care.